Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been going through a series of video presentations I'm creating for the Rankin Technical College 1111 .NET Framework with Web Databases class. And the book we are using for the class is Lee Naylor's ASP.NET MVC with Entity Framework and CSS. Problem, so to speak, with that book is that it's very complex. There's a lot of code and not a lot of explanation. So I've decided before we go through that book, we're going to go through yet a different book, and you get a free PDF copy of this, and it's Professional ASP.NET MVC 5 by John Galloway and others. This book uses kind of as its base the MvcMusicStore application, which was created back in MVC3. Well, I've been going over these lessons, and so far I've done the first three: the overview, controllers, views, and models, and now I'm going to go into models and data access. All right, so that's where I am. And as mentioned right here, so far we have just been passing dummy data from our controllers to our web templates. Now we're going to hook it up to a real database. So in this tutorial, here's the biggie. We will be covering how to use SQL Server Compact Edition, SQL CE, as the database engine. As they say, it's a free embedded file-based database that doesn't require any installation or configuration, which makes it ideal basically for working on your own system. We'll use the entity framework, also known as EF, that's included with ASP.NET MVC. Now we're going to be using not version 6, or 4 rather, but like version 6 point something, whatever the heck it is. Alright, and as it says, it supports a paradigm that's known as code first. Okay? With code first, you create your objects. Those objects, those classes that you create, also known as POCOs, or plain old CLR for Common Language Runtime Objects, are going to be used, for lack of better words, almost to create our database tables. All right. As far as the changes to our model classes, yes, we are going to have to make some. So they say we will be leveraging the database creation feature in the entity framework. Before doing so, let's make a few minor changes in our model classes that we'll be using later on. So we want to go to our, it says our albums will be associated with artists. So we want to create a simple model class named artist that looks like this. So let's copy that. Let's come back into here. Right mouse click on our models, choose add, choose class, and this one will be artist. We will come in here, and each artist will have an ID and a name. Okay, so we've got that done. Then we want to go in and update our album class so that it looks like this. And I'm just going to grab the whole thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we want to update our album class. Oops. So let's go ahead and do that. Currently we have just this. So we're going to come in here and update it like that. And then we're going to go to our genre class, which has currently only one field in it. And we're going to add 3 more. All right, so those have all been upgraded, updated. All right, so the next thing we're told to do here is to add an app data folder. I already have that. That's given to us by default in MVC5. It was not back in MVC3. But as they do mention in the handout that we're going through, app data is a special directory that typically holds database. All right. Now, we can still do this, but you'll notice that the app data is going to be grayed out because we already have it. So if I right mouse click on the project here, and I choose Add, and I choose ASP.NET folder, notice what's grayed out, app data. All right. So we don't have to do what's shown there on the bottom of page 3. All right. But we will have to come in and create a connection string. All right, so we'll add a few lines, as it says, to the website's configuration file, which is web.config. All right, so let's come into here. So we'll open that up, scroll down to the bottom, and add these connection strings. Now, this might be an older version of SQL Server CE. I really don't think that's going to matter with what we're doing, but we'll find out as we go along. So, web.config, and notice there's a web config here. There's a web config here. We want the one at the very bottom, right before our tests folder. That's this one. All right, then it says scroll down to the bottom. Okay, and I believe we have to do it inside of our configuration at that. All right, let's again do a save all, and let's close this. We shouldn't need the artist open anymore. In fact, let's just close everything. Probably a fast close all, but I don't offhand know what it is. Just that we've got a lot of stuff open right now. That's cleaner. All right, right-click on the models folder and add a new class named MvcStore Entity .cs. And it's MvcStore Entities .cs. All right. And we're told to add these two things in here. Now, these are DB sets. All right. For lack of better words, these are going to end up being the equivalent of tables for us. The class represents the entity framework database context, and it will automatically handle our create, read, update, and delete operations, CRUD as it's more often known, for us. Okay, there's no other configuration, special interfaces, etc. that we're going to need. By extending this DB context class, and why is it giving us the error? We put our mouse here. It says you got to add using system.data.entity, which if you'll notice, system.data.entity is not in here right now. As soon as I put my mouse there and tell it to add that, there it is, and all the errors go away. All right, so now that we've got that hooked up, let's add a few more properties to our model classes to take advantage of some of the additional information in our database. We'll take advantage of a feature in the entity framework that adds seed data to our newly created database. This will pre-populate our store catalog with a list of genres, artists, and albums. The assets thing, all right, has a class file with the seed data that's in a folder that's named code. All right, so let's come into here, put it here. See, it's in a folder named code, but I don't see a folder named code. Well, let's look in here. and see if we can find something that's called so we've got to look in here, see if we can find something that is called sample data. There it was, I saw it. Right there. So there it is, sampledata.cs. Okay, to that, and then I'm going to right mouse click in models and choose add existing item, and let's give it that big hairy butt path here, and sampledata.cs. There it is right there. So there's our sample data. Okay. Now we need to add a line of code to tell the EF or entity framework about the sample data. So the way that they're doing it is a way of doing it. I'm not saying it's the only way of doing it, but it is a way of doing it. So in this global.asax file, in the application start method right here, we want to add the following line at the top. Right up above that area registration. System.data.entity.database.setInitializer, paren. We don't have to put this on a new line, but it's easier to read if we do. New MvcMusicStore. Come on. MvcMusicStore .models .sample data, okay, which is going to tell it to run that seed file when the project opens. At this point, the author says on the top of page 7 here, we have completed the work necessary to configure the entity framework. Now let's update our store controller next. So instead of using dummy data, it's going to use what we want it to use. So let's go back to our controllers. And let's go back to our store controller, which right now, okay, doesn't have any, we're not telling it to do anything special, so we will here. We're going to say music store entities, store DB, which is just a name we're creating, equals new music store entities, paren. By declaring this field, it'll hold an instance of the music store entities class, which will be referred to as storeDB. This music store entities class is maintained by the entity framework. It exposes what's called a collection property for each table in the database. All right, so we're going to go down to the index method, which in here, remember we had hard-coded this stuff. All right, well, we don't want that in there anymore. We're not hard coding anymore. So we want to say here equals storedb.genres. Oops. Genres equal storedb.genres to list. We're telling it that what we want it to show us is the seed data. And that's exactly what we do want. I don't know how that got there, but there we go. We don't need to make any changes to the view template because we're still returning what we returned before. All right. Now the magic begins. So let's come in here and run this. And I'm going to go down to the index for the store. And we will view that in the browser. There were errors building the project. Well, do we want to build it anyway? No. Well, let's see if we can figure out where the problem was. Sorry. So let's save. And how about this? How about if we do a build solution to see if we can get an error. Class sample data. Oh, we're getting a lot of errors here. Wow, when you get stuff like does not exist in the current context, it says I probably skipped something. I'm not sure what, but I skipped something. This was the index.cshtml file. And it's too bad because I'm almost finished with this section, but hey, whatever. Well, I'll tell you, I'm at 17 minutes. I'm going to try to figure out this problem. I'll come back, hopefully, with the solution to it in just a couple minutes.